The fence fell down on a Tuesday. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just one section giving up after 20 years of Wisconsin winters, lying flat in my backyard like it had decided to take a permanent nap. I stood there in my bathrobe, coffee getting cold in my hand, staring at the gap where my fence used to be. On the other side, I could see straight into Walter Kowalski's yard, his tomato plants, his tool shed, his back porch where he sat every morning at exactly 6:15, no matter the weather. My name's Meredith, and at that point in my life, I'd been divorced for exactly 13 months, living alone for the first time in 22 years, still figuring out which bills came every month and which came once a season, still sleeping on just one side of the bed, still, some nights, talking to my ex-husband's empty chair at dinner before catching myself, and feeling foolish. The fence had been his department, like the gutters, like the furnace filter, like all the things I was slowly, painfully learning to handle on my own. I didn't know Walter well. We'd been fence neighbors for 5 years, but our interactions had been limited to polite waves and discussions about property lines. He was in his 70s, lived alone, kept his lawn perfect. The kind of neighbor who made you feel guilty about your dandelions but was too polite to say anything. I figured I should tell him about the fence. Seemed like the neighborly thing to do. So I changed out of my bathrobe, walked around to his front door, and knocked. He answered wearing a flannel shirt and jeans that had seen actual work. Not fashionable distressed. Life distressed. "Morning, Meredith. Saw the fence go down. Was wondering when you'd come by." "I'm sorry about that. I'll get someone out to fix it, soon as I figure out who to call." He studied me for a moment, those sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "You ever fixed a fence before?" "No." "Your husband used to handle that kind of thing?" I bristled a little. Small towns. Everyone knows everything. "Ex-husband, and yes." He nodded, slow, thoughtful. "Tell you what, I've got some time this week. How about we fix it together? I'll teach you. Then next time, you'll know how." I couldn't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Big difference. Something in my chest loosened then, like a knot I didn't know was there. For 13 months, everyone had offered to do things for me, fix things for me, handle things for me, but no one had offered to teach me, to believe I could learn. He paused at his door, looking back at me. The thing about fences is, they're not just about keeping things out. They're about knowing where you stand. Sometimes you got to rebuild to figure that out. That's how I found myself at Home Depot at 7 a.m. with a 73-year-old man who had opinions about everything. Strong opinions. "Pine? No, you want cedar. Costs more but lasts longer. Buy cheap, buy twice. These nails, wrong size. You need galvanized unless you like rust. That post hole digger, garbage. Here, this one, made in America. Still means something." I followed him through the store like a student, which I suppose I was. He didn't just tell me what to buy. He explained why, showed me how to check if wood was warped, taught me the difference between pressure-treated and natural, made me hold different hammers until I found one that felt right in my hand. "Tools are personal," he said. "Like shoes. The wrong fit just hurts you." The bill came to $300. I'd budgeted $500 for having someone else do it. Walter watched me pay without comment, but I caught him nodding, like I'd passed some kind of test. Back at my house, he laid out the supplies with military precision. Everything in its place, everything with a purpose. The cedar planks gave off their sweet, sharp scent in the morning air. "First rule of any project," he said, the measuring tape making a metallic whisper as he pulled it taut. "Measure twice, cut once. Second rule, coffee break every hour. Man's gotta pace himself." We worked side by side that first morning, him showing, me copying. The scrape of the post hole digger biting into Wisconsin clay. The hollow thud of posts dropping into place. The sharp zing when a nail went in clean and true. A sound that made Walter nod with approval. My hands soft from office work. his marked by decades of fixing, building, creating. "You're holding the hammer wrong," he said. Not mean, just matter of fact. "Here, like this. Let the weight do the work. You're not fighting the nail, you're guiding it." He was patient. More patient than my father had ever been. More patient than my ex-husband. When I bent a nail, he just handed me another one. When I measured wrong, he showed me how to fix it. When I got frustrated, he called for a coffee break. "You know what your problem is?" he said, sitting on my back steps, steam rising from his mug. "I'm terrible at this?" "No, you're scared of making mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. Every bent nail teaches you something, every wrong measurement, every splinter." Speaking from experience? He held up his left hand, crooked pinky finger. "Table saw, 1973, taught me to respect my tools." Pointed to a scar on his forearm. "Barbed wire, 1981, taught me to watch where I'm going." Tapped his temple. "Everything's a lesson if you're paying attention. Bent nails aren't mistakes. They're lessons in disguise." We worked on the fence for 3 days, 3 mornings actually. Walter insisted on quitting by noon. After lunch, mistakes happen. Tired hands are dangerous hands. But those mornings were about more than fence posts and cedar planks. They were about stories. Walter had a million of them. About growing up on a dairy farm, about serving in Vietnam, about meeting his wife at a dance hall in Milwaukee. "Margaret," he said, carefully measuring a board. "Prettiest girl in 3 counties, mean left hook too. Found that out when I tried to kiss her without permission." "She hit you?" "Knocked me flat, then helped me up and said if I wanted to kiss her, I better ask proper. So I did. Asked her to marry me 6 months later." "How long were you married?" 47 years. She passed 5 years ago, cancer." "I'm sorry." He shrugged, but it was a different shrug than I'd seen before. Heavy, full of weight, the saw in his hand stilled, teeth resting against the wood. "That's why I fix things," he said after a moment, running his thumb along the saw's handle like it held memories. "Keeps the hands busy, keeps the mind quiet. When Margaret was sick, I rebuilt our whole deck. When she died, I renovated the kitchen. Fixed every neighbor's whatever needed fixing. Better than sitting still. Better than thinking too much." I understood that. The need to keep moving. After David left, I'd reorganized every closet in the house. Alphabetized my spices. Color-coded my bookshelf. Anything to avoid the silence. "Is that why you offered to help me? To keep busy?" He looked at me then. Really looked. "Partly, but mostly because I remember what it's like, being suddenly alone, having to learn everything over. Margaret handled the money, the bills, the insurance. After she died, I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers, feeling like a fool, a 70-year-old fool who didn't know how to pay his own electric bill." "What did you do?" "Asked for help. Hardest thing I ever did. Harder than war, harder than farming. But I asked, and people helped. Figured it was my turn to pay it forward." By the 3rd day, I was actually helping, not just watching and copying, actually contributing. My measurements were accurate. My nails went in straight, mostly. "Look at that," Walter said, stepping back to admire our work. "Pretty good for a first-timer." The fence stood straight and tall, cedar gold in the morning sun. It looked better than the old fence ever had. "I couldn't have done it without you," I said. "Sure you could have. Might have taken longer, might have bent more nails, but you'd have figured it out. You're tougher than you think." That afternoon, for the first time since the divorce, I felt capable. Not just of surviving, but of handling things. Of learning and growing and becoming someone new. But Walter wasn't done teaching me. The next week, my kitchen faucet started dripping. Before, I would have called a plumber, or called David and listened to him sigh about the expense. Instead, I knocked on Walter's door. "Faucet's dripping," I said. "Probably needs a new washer. Got time to learn?" He didn't fix it for me. He stood next to me, talking me through it. Made me crawl under the sink. Made me turn off the water supply. Made me take the whole thing apart and put it back together. See? Simple. Probably saved yourself $60. More importantly, you'll never be afraid of a faucet again. That became our pattern. Something would break or need attention, and Walter would teach me how to fix it. Not do it for me. Teach me. The running toilet. Flapper valve, 5-minute fix. The squeaky door. WD-40 and a screwdriver, maybe 10 minutes. The pilot light on the furnace. Just needs relighting, but respect the gas. Always respect the gas. Each lesson came with stories. About his father, who could fix anything with baling wire and determination. About his grandson in California studying to be an engineer. About Margaret, who once fixed their car with a bobby pin and a piece of gum. She was the smart one, he'd say, his weathered hand absently reaching for a wrench on the workbench, turning it over like he was turning over the memory. I just looked pretty. But I was learning more than home repair. I was learning confidence, independence, the deep satisfaction of solving problems with your own hands. One morning in October, about 6 months after the fence, I found Walter sitting on his back porch. Not at 6:15. It was nearly 8. He was still in his pajamas, just sitting, staring at nothing. "Walter, you okay?" He startled, like he'd forgotten where he was. "Oh, Meredith, yes, fine, just today's a hard day." I climbed over the fence, our fence, the one we'd built together, sat down next to him without asking. "Margaret's birthday," he said after a while. "Would have been 72 today. I used to make her breakfast in bed, every birthday. French toast, her favorite." He stared at the mug in his hands like it held the whole memory. "Tell me about her." And he did. For 2 hours, he talked about Margaret. How she laughed, how she sang in the shower, how she couldn't carry a tune but sang anyway, how she grew the best tomatoes in the county, how she read mystery novels but always figured out the ending by page 50. "She sounds wonderful," I said. "She was. Lord, she was. Some days I forget she's gone. Turn to tell her something, reach for her in bed, then I remember, and it's like losing her all over again." I knew that feeling. The forgetting, the remembering, the fresh grief that ambushed you at unexpected moments. "Does it get easier?" I asked. "Different. Not easier, just different. You learn to carry it, like an old injury that aches when it rains. You learn to live around it, to build a life that has space for the sadness but isn't defined by it." "How?" "One fence post at a time," he said, and almost smiled. That winter was brutal. Snow measured in feet, not inches. I was getting better at handling things, but a blizzard in January tested my limits. The power went out. The pipes froze. I sat in my dark, cold house, wrapped in every blanket I owned, wondering if this was my limit, if this was where I gave up and admitted I couldn't do it alone. Then I saw the flashlight beam. Walter, trudging through the snow with a camping lantern and a thermos. "Figured you might need these," he said. Like it was nothing. Like checking on neighbors in a blizzard was just what people did. He helped me shut off the water to prevent the pipes from bursting, showed me how to insulate the vulnerable spots, taught me about space heaters and carbon monoxide, and keeping one room warm instead of trying to heat the whole house. "You got food?" he asked. "Some, mostly cereal and canned soup." "Come on, got a pot of chili on my wood stove. No sense eating alone in the dark." His house was warm. Not just temperature warm. Life warm. Photos covered every surface. Margaret at 20, at 40, at 60, their kids, grandkids. A whole life captured in frames. We ate chili by candlelight, played cards, told stories. He taught me to play cribbage, Margaret's favorite game. "She was ruthless," he said. "Never let me win. Said it was insulting to both of us if she did." Smart woman. The smartest. When the power came back on the next day, I didn't want to leave. Not because I was afraid of my cold house, but because Walter's house felt like home. Like family. Like what I'd been missing without even knowing it. the warmth that had nothing to do with his wood stove. Spring came eventually. As it does. I was outside planting flowers along our fence. The fence that started everything. Walter was working on his tomatoes. We worked in comfortable silence. The kind that comes from shared labor, shared stories, shared grief and growth. "You know," he said suddenly, "Margaret would have liked you." "Yeah?" "Yeah, she had a thing about strong women, said they were the only kind worth knowing." "I don't feel strong." "That's how you know you are. The ones who feel strong usually aren't. They're just loud, the quiet ones, the ones who get up every morning and do what needs doing, the ones who learn and grow and don't make a fuss about it. Those are the strong ones." A car pulled up then, California plates. A young man got out. Tall, broad shoulders. Walter's eyes around a different face. "Grandpa! Jake, what are you doing here?" "Spring break. Thought I'd come fix that shed roof you mentioned." Walter's whole face changed, lit up like sunrise. They hugged, long and hard, the kind of hug that says everything without words. "Jake, this is Meredith. She's the neighbor I told you about, the one who's been learning everything." Jake shook my hand. Strong grip, warm smile. "Grandpa says you're a natural. Says you could give me a run for my money in the engineering department." "Your grandfather exaggerates." "No," Walter said firmly. "I don't." That week, 3 generations worked on Walter's shed. Him teaching, Jake and me learning, the stories flowing like water, Walter telling Jake about his grandmother, Jake telling us about school, me adding my own stories to the mix. "This is nice," Jake said one evening. We were sitting on Walter's porch, the shed fixed, the sun setting. "Grandpa seems lighter, happier than at Christmas." "He's a good teacher," I said. "It's more than that. He has purpose again, someone to pass things on to. That matters. That's everything, really." After Jake left, Walter seemed younger somehow, energized. He started planning new projects, a greenhouse, a workshop, a community garden in the empty lot down the street. "Idle hands," he said when I asked about all the plans. "But also, I've got knowledge, skills. Seems selfish to keep them to myself. Seems like maybe there are others who need to learn what you've been learning." "A teaching workshop?" "Why not? World's full of people who don't know how to fix things, full of people afraid to try. Maybe we change that. One bent nail at a time." The workshop started small. Just a folding table in Walter's garage, him teaching basic repairs to anyone who wanted to learn. Word spread. Divorced women, young couples, single fathers, widowers, all of us fumbling through life. All of us needing to know how to fix more than leaky faucets. I became his assistant, then his co-teacher. Turns out I was good at explaining things to beginners, good at remembering what it felt like to not know, good at making mistakes seem like opportunities instead of failures. "You've got the gift," Walter told me one day, echoing what he'd said about Margaret. "You see people, really see them, see what they need to learn and how they need to learn it." The workshop grew, moved to the community center, became official, the Fix-It Fellowship, someone named it. And it stuck. But it was about more than repairs. It was about confidence, community, the knowledge that you could handle what life threw at you, the certainty that if you couldn't, someone would teach you how. I've been thinking about fences lately, how they divide, but also how they connect, how a fallen fence can become a bridge, how the right neighbor can change everything. Walter's in his 80s now, slower but still sharp, still teaching, still fixing, still showing up at 6:15 on his back porch, though sometimes I join him now. We drink coffee, watch the sunrise, talk about Margaret and David and how life never turns out how you plan, how that's not always a bad thing. The fence we built is still standing, strong and straight and true. When the morning sun hits it, the cedar glows that same gold it did the day we finished. I've built others since then, helped neighbors, taught newcomers, passed on what Walter taught me. Not just the how, but the why, the patience, the persistence, the belief that everyone can learn. Last week, a young woman knocked on my door, recently divorced, overwhelmed. She'd heard about the Fix-It Fellowship, heard I could help. "I don't know anything," she said. "I can't even use a screwdriver properly." "Perfect," I said. "That's exactly where you should start. Come on, let me show you something." I led her to the fence. Our fence. Ran my hand along the wood, still golden after all these years. "See this? I built this. Me and my neighbor. I didn't know anything either. Couldn't hammer a nail straight. Couldn't measure worth a damn. But he taught me. And now I'm going to teach you." "Really?" "Really. First lesson, everyone starts somewhere. Second lesson, the only way to learn is to try. Third lesson, coffee break every hour. Man's gotta pace himself." She laughed. A small laugh, but a real one. The first of many. Because that's what Walter taught me. That's what the fence taught me. That's what breaking and fixing and learning taught me. We're stronger than we think. We're capable of more than we imagine. And the right teacher, the right neighbor, the right moment of kindness can change everything. One bent nail at a time, one fixed fence at a time, one helping hand at a time. That's how we rebuild. Not just fences, but lives, communities, faith in ourselves and each other. That's the real repair, the one that matters, the one that lasts. And it all started with a fallen fence, a Tuesday morning, and a neighbor who saw not just what was broken, but what could be built, what could be taught, what could be shared, what could grow from one small act of seeing someone who needed help and offering to teach instead of just fix. That's the difference, the gift, the magic. Not just fixing the fence, but teaching someone they could fix it themselves. Teaching them they were capable, strong, able to handle whatever comes next. That's what Walter gave me, what I try to give others, what keeps growing and spreading and building. One fence post at a time, one lesson at a time, one neighbor at a time, until we're all connected, all capable, all part of something bigger than our individual broken fences. That's the real story, the real fix, the real hope, and it's still growing, still building, still standing strong. Just like Walter told me that first day, standing at his door with sawdust in his hair and wisdom in his eyes. The thing about fences is, they're not just about keeping things out. They're about knowing where you stand. Now I know where I stand, on solid ground, surrounded by community, capable of fixing whatever breaks, one bent nail, one lesson at a time.